When people imagine the Ice Age, they picture a frozen world. White horizons. Mammoths in the snow. Small bands of humans, wrapped in fur, somehow enduring the cold. But that picture is almost too simple to be true. Because the Ice Age was not just a season of low temperatures. It was an entire planetary order built against human life. A world where coastlines vanished, winds changed direction, rain failed, food chains broke, and the land itself kept moving the line between survivable and lethal. It did not try to kill us in one dramatic way. It tried in 1,000 quiet ways at once. At the height of the Last Glacial Maximum, around 26,500 years ago, sea level was more than 400 feet lower than it is today, and ice covered about a quarter of Earth's land. This was not a local winter. It was a rearrangement of the world. Whole regions were crushed under ice sheets. Shorelines moved outward. Land bridges appeared. Habitats that once supported life collapsed into cold, dry emptiness. And the strangest part is this. In many places, the Ice Age was not even especially snowy. It was too dry. That is the first hidden truth. Ice sheets do not just mean cold. They mean a planet whose water has been locked away. A planet with altered winds, weakened rainfall, dust-filled air, and vast stretches of land that look open but offer almost nothing. The world of the Ice Age was not simply frozen. It was starved. This matters because cold alone is a solvable problem. You can build a fire against cold. You can stitch hides against cold. You can huddle against cold. But how do you fight a world where the grass grows poorly? The herds move unpredictably. Winters lengthen. Summers fail. And every calorie costs more energy than it gives back. That was the real enemy. The Ice Age turned survival into an energy equation so brutal that one mistake could echo through an entire group. Hunt unsuccessfully for too long, and there is no reserve. Travel at the wrong time, and the land ahead may already be empty. Lose a few adults to exposure or injury, and the problem is not just grief. It is system failure. Fewer hunters, fewer gatherers, fewer hands to carry fuel, make shelter, protect children, process meat, remember roots. In a world like that, survival was never individual. It was organizational. That is what people often miss. Humans did not survive the Ice Age because we were the strongest animals in it. We survived because we became the best at pooling minds. The real weapon was not the spear. It was coordination, shared labor, memory carried in stories, skills carried across generations. A social structure strong enough to store knowledge outside the body. Where the herd crosses. Which valley holds shelter from crosswinds. How to preserve fat. How to sew layered clothing that traps heat instead of just covering skin. How to ration. How to move the old, the young, and the injured together instead of abandoning them. The Ice Age selected for adaptability, not comfort. And that pressure may have helped shape some of the traits that made us human in the first place. As the Smithsonian's Rick Potts argues, major milestones in human evolution track long periods of climate instability, favoring not perfect specialization, but flexibility. Bigger brains, broader diets, stronger cooperation, the ability to adjust when the world refused to stay still. That phrase matters, refused to stay still. Because the Ice Age was not one long, stable, deep freeze. It lurched, pulsed, reversed. It trapped life in cycles of false relief and sudden punishment. Around 14,500 years ago, the climate began to warm out of the last glacial world. That should have been the exit, the thaw, the long release. But partway through, the system snapped backward. Northern temperatures plunged again into near glacial conditions in an event we call the Younger Dryas. And when it ended, the shift was terrifyingly fast. In Greenland, temperatures rose by about 10 degrees Celsius in roughly a decade. Not over centuries, within a human lifetime. That is the second hidden truth. The Ice Age was not only hostile because it was cold, it was hostile because it was unstable. A stable hardship can be learned. An unstable one keeps deleting your lessons. Follow a herd path for years, and the climate changes. Depend on a plant zone, and the rainfall shifts. Build life around a coastline, and the sea invades. Move into a warming corridor, and the cold returns. Even the oceans became part of the threat. Noé's summary of the Younger Dryas points to massive pulses of meltwater from the retreating North American ice sheet disrupting North Atlantic circulation, weakening the transport of heat and abruptly reshaping climate across regions. In other words, the Ice Age was not just happening in the sky above people. It was being managed by a planetary machine of ice, fresh water, and ocean currents. And humans were living inside that machine without understanding its rule. Then there was the food web. When people think of Ice Age abundance, they think of giant animals, mammoths, bison, reindeer, woolly rhinos. But megafauna abundance was not a promise. It was a dangerous dependence. In many cold regions, life clustered around a few highly productive niches. Miss the migration, and the landscape could become almost useless. Overhunt a region, and recovery might take years. Lose a keystone herd, and the damage spreads outward. Because those giant animals were not just food, they were movement patterns, clothing, bone fuel, tools, shelter material, predictable routes through chaos. An entire human economy could be tied to creatures that looked invincible, but were actually living on a knife edge of climate and habitat. And when the climate began to shift fast, many of those systems unraveled. Grasslands gave way to wetter terrain, shrubs, forests, peatlands. The mammoth steppe, one of the largest biomes on Earth during the late Ice Age, did not simply end. It dissolved beneath the animals, and people adapted to it. The map changed faster than old survival strategies could. Some animals disappeared, others retreated. Humans had to pivot again, and again, and again. So when we say the Ice Age tried to kill us, we should be precise. It was not a villain. It was not a storm. It was not one catastrophe. It was a permanent condition of exposure. Exposure to cold, yes, but also to scarcity, to distance, to uncertainty, to ecological collapse, to abrupt shifts large enough to erase entire ways of life. And that pressure did something profound to us. It made survival collective before it made it technological. Long before cities, before agriculture, before writing, humans were already building something invisible: social infrastructure. Trust, role division, long memory, reciprocal obligation, the capacity to survive bad seasons by becoming more than one person's body and one day's luck. That may be the deepest layer beneath the Ice Age story. It did not just test our endurance. It tested whether we could become a species that outsources survival into culture. A wolf survives with teeth. A mammoth survives with size. A human survives by turning experience into shared design. That is why the Ice Age matters more than its imagery suggests. It was not the backdrop to prehistory. It was the forge. The thing pressing on our species hard enough to reward flexibility over perfection, cooperation over dominance, invention over instinct. And even then, survival was never guaranteed. There is a temptation, looking backward, to turn our ancestors into inevitabilities, to imagine that because we are here now, they must always have been destined to win. But from inside the Ice Age, there was no sense of destiny. Only weather, only hunger, only distance, only another winter, only the possibility that the herd would not come back. For tens of thousands of years, human life existed close to failure. Not because people were primitive, but because the world was. The stable climate in which agriculture, surplus, cities, and civilization would later emerge was not normal in the long story of our species. It was the exception, the break in the violence, the rare calm after a very long hostility. And that may be the final realization. The Ice Age did not merely surround early humans. It taught us what kind of planet we were up against. A planet capable of changing the sea by hundreds of feet. A planet capable of shifting major temperatures within a lifetime. A planet where survival depended less on strength than on how much reality a group could remember together. So the story of the Ice Age is not really about snow. It is about a world so unforgiving that, to stay alive inside it, humans had to become something new. Not the strongest creature, not the fastest, not the most specialized. Just the one that could adapt faster than the world could finish the job.